and Arthur here, and this is Watch and Learn. We watch films and
teach English. Brew cuppa. We're about to start. Greetings, listeners.
Hi everyone.
This is our first Watch and Learn. This is the podcast about movies in English.
Yeah.
So since the first one, let us introduce ourselves properly. First of all, she has been learning languages since childhood and later decided to share her passion with them by becoming a teacher. As a teenager, she also got into watching movies, hoping to further annoy people with her nerdy comments about art house cinema. Xenia, everyone.
Thank you. Arthur is a graduated English teacher with a long history of watching everything he possibly can. A huge Batman fan. Learned about cinema just enough to know that Scorsese should finally retire.
He should, definitely. So, today we decided to start with our favorite film. It just happened that our most, number one film is the same, and this is The Fountain by Darren Aronofsky. So, we're going to discuss the movie and discuss some questions, and then later share some useful phrases and words from the movie for you to use if you learn English. And before we start, we should probably put some disclaimer that there are going to be huge spoilers.
So if you haven't watched...
If you haven't watched, please go and watch. Highly recommend it, obviously. Or you can just listen to us, if you don't care. Maybe we will inspire you to watch that movie. So, we start with the first impression. So, Xenia, do you remember your first time?
Oh yes, I do. If I were asked to choose just one favorite movie of all time, I would definitely choose this one. And of course, it's impossible to choose one. I always say, it's impossible. There's no one favorite movie. I'm gonna name, 5 favorite directors or 10 favorite, maybe 10 top movies or something. But if I had to choose, just one movie, it would be it. My first impression, yes, I remember it very well. I got this movie from a friend who was studying in China, and she brought some pirate DVDs with movies. This one, all of them were with Chinese subtitles, but in English, the ones that I watched. So this was one of them. And I was absolutely shocked, I think. I was amazed. I was sitting like, wow, what is going on? I watched it, I think, like 6 or maybe 7 or more times since then, and every time I find something new for myself. But that first impression was absolutely just awed, amazed. How about you? What did you feel? Do you remember?
It's, just like in that meme, same but different, but same but different. In terms of that, not gonna lie, I don't remember my first time. But just the fact that at some point I started watching that film like every 2-3 years after my first session, it means something. And I definitely remember my experiences like after the first time that movie. As you said, the same story, that every time that I would watch that, I would find something new for myself. And this has never happened with any other movie, honestly. Not in terms of the plot details or some like little things that people can miss, after the first session, but in terms of the meanings, in terms of the maybe emotions, and what this movie actually means to me. And my story with this movie is super personal because with time, even before I, watched the film, I developed a very strong phobia of death. and we will discuss that later. The main topic of the movie, yeah, the main issue that they're trying to explore there is the attitude to this part of our existence, specifically the end of it. And this movie is still helpful, like every time I rewatch that, to just a chance to revisit this. It's like a therapy. Like every time it's like a therapy. And again, we will discuss that later in terms of the this opposition between the attitudes and everything, and I will tell a little bit more about how, like, which side I was on and what's going on at the moment with me. Okay, next part is what we can highlight. Yeah, what we like the most about the fountain. So, what would that be for you, Xenia?
It's just so hard to choose. Like, obviously, everything. What we said, what you said, that you can rewatch it and revisit it and find new stuff every time. Clint Mansell, yeah, we can't forget the soundtrack. It's so good. The actors are just amazing. I love Hugh Jackman. I love Rachel Weisz as well. I love them both. They are so good. And another thing that is very important for me is that when you rewatch it even years later, you see that because there's a lot of this space stuff and effects and everything, you still see that it's kind of still relevant, still watchable. And why is it so? I actually found out that this was the goal for the director. So he didn't want to use any computer generated effects that would later just become less
That they wouldn't like age very well. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Because with new technologies, just new things appear every year, and the film that had great special effects last year has doesn't have them this year. So he specifically focused on this thing. So he wanted his movie to be like watchable, just throughout time later on. So he didn't. He tried to use as few as possible. What he did instead is he collaborated with a photographer, specialist in macro photography. They made some images, some videos of microorganisms, of some kind of fluids. So basically, he used something else instead of just computer imagery, which is just amazing. I mean, the inspiration he got from Space Odyssey. If you watch that, if you haven't watched that, you have to. It's like the first movie you watch. You still watch this movie nowadays, and it's still super cool. Same with The Fountain, just same. So this, yeah, what do you think? What's your opinion?
First of all, shout out to practical effects. Even it's just what I see in cinema in general, that practical effects always win. Even if it's at the given moment, yeah, some old movies which had to use practical effects, yeah, look, how to say, look worse, yeah, than a very good CGI at the moment. Then later, as you said, the CGI gets old, it doesn't age very well, it never aged very well. But as I can see from, I don't know, just on the internet, I mean, just talking to people, seeing opinions, that people love those old movies when people had to, like, use just whatever they had around, and that's why this props department in movies is such a big thing still. They're super creative people. If you don't know anything about props, I just recommend finding a couple of channels on YouTube and watch what they do when they do. You would be amazed of how much stuff in movies are actually not real
Yeah.
and why the coffee cups are always empty. So, talking about what impressed me most about the movie, I think that I've realized recently that acting for me is like the first thing that I pay attention to. The movie can be like the plot can be super interesting. The visuals can be just astonishing, but if the actors are not good, enough, for me that's a no-no. Like from the very second when I notice some cringe face expressions or
Yeah.
very strange voices and
Unnatural
intonations.
acting.
Yeah, it just kills it for me on the spot.
Absolutely.
And so I should highlight, of course, the acting in this movie. Rachel Weisz, crush for a lot of people. Yeah, that girl from the Mummy, as they say, and Mr. Wolverine, Hugh Jackman. Of course, he's always been great, and I like his character very much in this movie. And yeah, and I think, yeah, of course, the music, by the way, yeah, Clint Mansell. This guy, something that I still remember about my first session is the music. Now that you've mentioned that, and that music, specifically the main score, I think it's called The Last Man.
The
Sorry.
Last Man.
The Last Man, and We Will Live Forever Together Forever. Yeah, We Will Live Together Forever. Those are the tracks that, and the road to, the death is the road to all. Those tracks, they, when I was a teenager, they inspired me to start writing because
Wow.
those music. And this is a very important, I think, feature of any score that you can listen to that score outside of the movie, and it's listenable.
Yeah.
Um,
I did
it-
that. I had that soundtrack somewhere in my music, yeah.
and this is like what I can easily say about the Clemenceau score for this movie. You don't even have to watch the movie; you can just listen to that, to those tracks, and just enjoy the beauty, the tranquility, the some kind of intrigue in some of the tracks, and yeah, those are so beautiful that they inspired me to actually start writing a story by the name The Last Man. uh, Plot wise, it was not connected to the story of the fountain,
Okay.
but mostly connected to the title of this of this track. So yeah, the score is just perfect. So if you watch the movie, you know that it has a very particular structure. Yeah, so it has three different storylines, but with the same actors. So this is what we want to explore now, to discuss these three storylines. So can we first just say what is going on there?
Yeah, I think so. I guess in terms of the first two, it's quite obvious, it's quite straightforward. We really get the idea that the first one we have this medieval story, which is actually it's the story who Rachel's character in the second story is writing in her book, yeah. But the third one, it's not so straightforward. We have questions here. I believe there are some interpretations, and I'm not sure that there's the final answer. Like there's some answer we have from the director or something. Anyway, even if there is, I'm not really interested. I feel it's cool if you have your own kind of interpretation, understanding of what it is. So the third one, I mean, where Tom, the main Hugh's character, yeah, he's in a sphere, and I think this one we discussed in a lot of detail because we had different ideas with you about it, about what was going on.
Yeah, and I think we can just share our maybe not the opposite, but just different, yeah, opinions on what is going on. I
Okay.
can start,
Mm-hmm.
and just spoiler alert, I really like the idea that you shared
Mm.
at some point. So just keep you intrigued, listeners. So how I understood the movie. So we have this three storylines. As we've said already, two of them are pretty obvious. We have Tom and Liz. Sorry, is. I've made this mistake before.
Mm-hmm.
So, is, yeah. Tom is a doctor and a scientist, a practicing scientist, I think I can say, who's looking for cure for cancer. And very quickly, we see in the movie that he's got a very strong motivation for that because Easy, his wife, she's got cancer. She's got brain cancer. The second storyline is, as Xenia mentioned, it's the book that Easy is writing at the moment of the plot, which is about the Spain of the Queen of Spain,
Mm-hmm.
by the same name, Isabel, specifically Isabel the First, who I will speak more later about, and her conquistador. And both of them are played by the same actors, Rachel Weisz and Hugh Jackman, respectively. And the third one, which is the mysterious one, is the Hugh's character traveling to Xibalba, as they call that in the film. In other words, Nebula, which is mentioned in Izzy's book. So how I interpreted the situation. Big spoiler, Izzy dies at the end of the movie. Tom doesn't have enough time to find the cure. And this third storyline can be interpreted this way, that even though we got some hints that Tom could succeed in finding the cure, which is even more than just a cure for cancer. It's like a cure for death, like something that can actually keep you young and immortal, allegedly. But I interpreted that third one as Tom actually failed and
Mm-hmm.
he died. And this third storyline is about his soul joining his wife years and years later, traveling to this Xibalba, to this nebula, where he would probably join his wife.
Mm-hmm.
This is how I understood. And why? Why do I interpret this part this way? Because for me, the most important topic in this movie is this attitude to death. And we see that from the very beginning, Tom's and Easy's attitudes, they're super different. Tom's attitude to death, it's pretty verbal in the movie. He literally says that in the film, that death is a disease, and just like any disease, it can be cured. But Easy, she looks at death from a more like a philosophical kind of a way, that it's a part of life, that nothing actually dies forever, and you can become a part of nature. You can, for example, yeah, she asks Tom to plant a tree seed on her grave on the farm, so that she becomes a part of this tree and become of the nature and become the part of the bloom and branches and all that stuff. And she got this philosophy from the Mayan culture. about how such things work. But you shared a very different take on the situation, so share.
Okay, so now you mention it, yeah, I realized that maybe I'm not sure I remember exactly what I said last time we discussed. So if I'm wrong at some point, correct me. Also,
Sure.
maybe I also need to rewatch it again, just to, refresh my idea. I was absolutely sure from the very first watch, and this didn't change, that this is this guy in the third part. It's Tom. It's him. He's in space, so he's a kind of astronaut, yeah, cosmonaut or something. Which is interesting that I had this. I was absolutely sure in this idea, whereas when we were discussing it with my husband, when we watched it together once, his idea was that, like, it's not space, it's not a spaceship, nothing like that. It's just he went mad after his wife dying, and this is all happening inside his head, and it's just or maybe inside some establishment or something. So it's not space, it's not a spaceship or anything, but I still like stick to my idea. And why I think my interpretation is correct. Yeah, I agree that they have different approaches to death. While Izzy was preparing for something more, for just life after death, Tom was, he had this scientific point of view. He was against death. He wanted to stop it. He wanted to find cure and everything. And my idea was that he found cure. With this cure for cancer, he also found a way to maintain life for a very long time, to basically live forever, which he did. And at some point, he is a very, very old man, but still alive, going in a spaceship to this star they discussed previously. I thought maybe he's saving this tree as part of Earth, because Earth doesn't exist anymore. So he's saving this little bit. He's trying to take it to another world, maybe trying to take this cure somewhere else. So my idea was that it was some kind of, yeah, future situation, I guess. I still feel that it's in future, far, far away. Yeah, and something like that. Was that the interpretation I told you?
That was the
Yeah.
interpretation. And I like that the first time you shared that. And actually, now that you've retold that, I see a lot of arguments. I see a lot of points why that could be true. First of all, that tree, it's that tree.
Yeah.
That tree.
Yeah.
So the tree that grew out of Easy's
Yes.
grave.
Yes.
And probably, yeah, like he's trying to save it, or but at the same time there's this moment when there are cues, yeah, that this character says that he's dying and he's ready to die. So for me it was that part was mostly like philosophical, even maybe not the actual fact that it's his soul traveling to this Shibalba, but just the philosophical take on the situation, that the topic of death has always been this issue for them, which couldn't let them be together. Like even in the movie, we
Yeah.
see how their different attitudes actually
Yeah.
separate them,
Absolutely.
while that would be logical to stay with your wife, while she's dying. He's spending more time at work trying to save
To
her,
find that cure.
which doesn't, yeah, which doesn't work. And I mean, she finds a way to be with her husband even after the death. I mean, through that tree, through the book. So we could say that maybe like these theories, they you can kind of combine them. So when you watch the movie, you can, keep in mind these two theories. Maybe you can come up with something else.
Mm-hmm.
Because I see, arguments to both, or maybe, just like my issues showing me, what I wanna see.
Yeah, and I think every time you watch it, or everyone who watches it can find something for themselves, or some answer to their inner questions or something.
Definitely.
Mm.
We kind of discussed this juxtaposition, yeah, between Tom's and Lisa's attitudes
Mm-hmm.
towards death. Again, as much as I know about cinema at the moment, it's a perfect conflict because this is something that awaits all of us, and we all have certain opinions about it. So I think anyone who watches the movie can side, yeah, with someone. Maybe it's not even Tom or Easy, yeah, that we have other characters
Mm-hmm.
there who are, they still participate in the story
Mm-hmm.
like big time.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what I wanted to say is that it's like for me rewatching this film, it's also kind of a journey, because maybe even like a mission, because so far I've always been on Tom's side, and this
Mm.
is still what I feel about life in general. But I see it as a kind of a goal for me to probably, I mean, internally, like psychologically, possibly join the easiest side of the truth. So yeah, again, this movie is therapeutical
Mm-hmm.
as hell.
Yeah.
Okay, fun fact.
Yeah, I was wondering about the names. This was kind of interesting for me. It is kind of interesting for me to sometimes find like what's the meaning of the names, or if there's anything that the author implied by choosing a name and so on. I found so this is something I found, that Tom Hughes character is Major Tom from Space Oddity, David Bowie, and Easy is Easy Creo. Creo is the surname. Well, we know she's Isabel because we also have Queen Isabel and stuff. She's also in the other story, she's the Queen of Spain. And I learned a bit of Spanish, not very successful there, but enough to know that if you look at her name, Easy Creo, Easy Creo, from Spanish, it can be translated as yes, I believe. So this is something that just I found interesting. And
Wow.
Arthur, thank you for highlighting it for me, because I believe there was a typo in one of our discussions where you named her Lizzie, and I was like, is it Lizzie or Izzy? And I started, researching the question when I found out that actually it has this meaning. About the Spanish thing, that her name is can be translated, I'm not sure if I saw it somewhere or it's just something obvious. I couldn't find any like proof links, but I guess if it is so or not doesn't matter, because it's still kind of a fun fact. You can just, I mean, you can decide for yourself if it means something or not.
If
Uh,
something is in the movie,
mm,
especially if it's a good movie,
mm.
it's not an accident.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, okay.
I found it interesting maybe to look for some historical context of the situation, because, as we've mentioned, Easy is writing a book about the Queen of Spain and her conquistador, and that is actually very interesting, because this is where history, the real history, and the story of the film contradict each other big time. In the in the movie, there's this conflict between the Queen and the Inquisition. The Inquisition's mission is to subdue and conquer the area which is ruled by Queen Isabella in the film. But if you simply Google, Isabellas of Spain, there's only one. If you go to the Wikipedia page of this movie, you will see that it's official that Rachel Weisz, in one of the stories, portray specifically Isabella the 1st. And what we know about her, this is very interesting. She's not that cool of a dude, actually. She was not, okay, that cool of a dude as we see in the movie. Because in the movie we see that she's like an enemy of the Inquisition. She's trying to fight with them, which looks super personal there because there's this certain inquisitor who's trying to to subdue her and conquer the lands over which she rules. But if you just read a little bit, you can learn that Isabella the First, who was the first queen of the Spain, she was the first one together with her husband Ferdinand. They were the first one in Spain who got this title, like Queen of Spain and King of Spain. So like nobody had ever been called like this before them. And they do have like certain quote unquote accomplishments. And they're not that, to be honest, righteous. Because, let me just read. Their actions included completion of the Reconquista. The Reconquista, that's the event of like this whole mission, whatever, of Spain trying to conquer the lands in the so-called New Spain, which is the territories which Spanish-speaking countries conquered in the North America and Mesoamerica, the Middle America, and obviously a little bit of a South America. So they were conquerors big time. Next one is, sorry for the pronunciation probably, but that's called the Alhambra Decree, which is it's a mass expulsion of Jews from one of the territories of modern Spain. It was a separate kind of a thing, but now it's just a part of Spain. I don't remember the name of it, unfortunately. And this, what actually initiated the Spanish Inquisition. So she was at the roots of the Inquisition herself. I mean, this is interesting to change history just to strive for your own meanings for the film. No judging. It's just it's just fun facts. It's just interesting how some historical figures are sometimes used in fiction.
Okay, wow.
So yeah.
I haven't thought about it. Do you have any ideas why he chose this particular part of Spanish history? Why Spanish? Why this moment? What's the connection? I've never thought. I just now have this thought, like, why? How is it connected to the whole story? Maybe there's no connection.
Well, that could be as simple as the fact that probably everything started with the legend of the tree life, and I believe it was created outside of the film. It's not like new that there were theories that the Mayans, they were hiding the tree of life, which is mentioned in the Bible, and it's all discussed in the movie. and maybe, like one after another, and now we have like this historical background, like more or less real one, yeah, some real conflicts. That inquisitor that we see in the movie, he's not real. Again, Cecilio, I believe his name was. I couldn't find his name in the list of the known inquisitors. So he's fully like, fictional. The conflict is fictional. So, of course, there were some, like, here and there fights between different people who wanted to rule over Spain and, this kind of stuff. But, like, what's new? Yeah. I mean, it's still like the 15th, 16th century we're talking about here. So there were a lot of stuff going on between the royalties and the noble people.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, it's not a crime, using. I mean, we can remember here, for example, Tarantino's *Inglourious Bastards*, and this funny mustache guy, yeah, the person who did not mention the name of, he's literally killed in the movie by the movie characters. So it's fun. I mean, why not? Nobody's gonna complain.
Yeah, okay. No, I was just wondering why like this, but now I see that maybe he wanted also the idea of a man like fighting for some kind of doing something for a woman. That's what we had in some classic romance archetypes, yeah, of the past, of literature, in history and so on. So he wanted to kind of connect this story with something, yeah. So that's part of it, yeah. A brave knight saving or getting something to get the love of a queen or something, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so definitely watch this movie. Maybe you can come up with your own ideas about what it is. Highly recommend, 10 out of 10.
Definitely, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. So, we're wrapping out about the movie, and this is gonna be the part where we share something useful for you guys.
I always recommend, or no, not really recommend. I just like watching stuff in English because I like the actors' voices, their actual voices, yeah. I like to find some cool stuff in English, just some vocabulary, grammar, just some expressions. And yeah, in this particular movie, what I found, it's a lot about speaking, especially the parts that is kind of modern setting, yeah, where you have I don't want to say the main story, but kind of the central, yeah, Tom and his wife who is ill, and him, the doctor. So there's a lot of speaking stuff, just spoken language. So what I want to highlight here, that we have a lot of phrasal verbs, which are especially common for spoken language, yeah, for spoken. And then we have phrases. We, for example, hear that they say to take a walk instead of saying just walk, or to have a word instead of to talk, yeah. We have a lot of things like to get down, to pull out a car, to hang on, wait on, etc., etc. So this is either it's a phrasal verb, which is a verb plus a particle or a preposition, or it's a verb plus a noun, which is often used instead of just a verb. So instead of saying we walked, shall we walk? Let's walk. I don't know. Do you want to walk? Let's take a walk. Let's have a walk. And we have a number of these verbs in English that can be used like that: speak, take, have, get. Yeah, and it's very, very natural. It's how English works better, and this is something you can just save for your future use. And this is super, super nice, super natural in English, and it feels better. Yeah. What have you found?
I'm gonna cover more like a grammatical part.
Mm-hmm.
The first point would be something that I actually made this mistake myself at some point, and I was like, I was told about this in a real situation, in real life, is the difference between which and what in questions, like which plus noun, what plus noun question. In the movie, we have these two different questions in a relatively short period of time. It's Tom talking to some of his colleagues. And the first question, I'm not quoting here, but the first question was which sample should we use or something like this. Yeah, they're talking about different samples of medicine that they're trying to create for cancer. And Tom is asked, like, which sample should we, like, which sample you're talking about. And just a bit later, after the operation, we hear the question. We see that Tom is looking for his ring that he had to take off for the operation, but later he couldn't find it, and he's asking about that ring.
Mm-hmm.
He's asking his colleague about this ring, and the colleague reacts with the question, "What ring?" So, what's the difference? Why do we have this which sample, but then we have what ring? What's the difference? The difference is pretty simple. We use which when we have a limited choice.
Mm-hmm.
So the question was which sample because they, of course, like created a certain number of different samples. It was not a limitless variations of different ones, yeah, of a lot of different samples. So the question was which one, which of those that we have created already. And about the ring, the question was what ring, because the colleague did not even understand what Tom was talking
Mm-hmm.
about. Like, what ring specifically talking about? So, which ring is not a very good question here because that would mean that Tom has like a, and the colleague knows about this, that Tom had a certain number of rings and he just lost one of them. And
Okay.
he's like specifically asking, like, which one of those rings that you have you lost? So it was just a genuine question of like, what is going on? Like, what ring are you looking for?
Mm-hmm.
And that was the what is it called? Marriage ring, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so be careful with that.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. So every time you have a limited number, even if it's not vocal, even if it's not verbal, if it's situational, if you have a limit of choices, go for a which plus noun question, not for a what plus noun question.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the second thing that I wanted to say, it's this thing that becomes pretty often becomes a problem on my lessons with students. It's the word shall. Yeah. Something that some of my students still remember learning at school as a version of will
Mm-hmm.
when we mention ourselves as an individual person or as a group. That if you say I or we instead of will, you should say shall. But this, yeah, of course, you can say something like that if you want to sound like an 80-year-old man or an 80-year-old woman, because that's not a thing anymore. And the only situation where this shall is used is how it's used in this movie. So we use shall in situations when we offer something,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, when we offer our assistance, when we offer our help, or when we want to suggest doing something together.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Xenia, shall we start a podcast about movies?
Yeah.
Um, Something like this. It's a very, frequent phrase to use. It's a very polite way to offer your help, just not to sound like intervening in people's, whatever they're doing. So, yeah.
This is extremely interesting. I remember having learned that, I believe it was somewhere at school or something, that you can you have to use shall when nowadays we use will. And then later on we saw that actually that's something that's outdated already. I also noticed that I don't know, not many, at least I noticed some directors or writers using it purposefully, showing that the person who uses shall instead of will is like from some other generation. For instance, Dumbledore from Harry Potter. He's super old, but he's using this shall thing. And the author wanted to show us that, yeah, he's old. I mean, he also speaks in a less modern English than other actors, actors or characters, if we talk about the book. So yeah, it's a nice thing to do if you're portraying or if you see these characters from another generation. But for using it nowadays, yeah, don't, please don't.
Cringe. Yeah.
If you're not offering something, yeah. So
Yeah, I think our listeners could have noticed already that in a lot of movies there's this epic moment when soldiers or superheroes uh, join each other in the moment before a battle, and then we hear this epic badass phrase, shall we? Inviting to start, kicking bad guys'
yeah.
asses. So yeah, it's like can be also used, yeah, as a call for action in such situations. Just pay attention. You will hear and see a lot of moments like this in movies and TV
Okay.
shows. Super super useful phrase. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess this is it for our first one. The movie's good. Watch it, please, and learn new stuff.
Yeah, and absolutely watch it and let us know if you have any other interpretations or ideas or any other thoughts on it.
Definitely. Share the podcast with your friends. Leave us a comment about whatever you want
Yeah.
to say. Maybe, yeah, maybe some ideas about the movie if you've watched that already, or maybe some language experience. Yeah, some mistakes that you keep making, and we could help in the next episode. For now, that's it. This is our goodbyes until the next one. See you.
Okay. See you soon.